I wanted to get to know you, and I want to understand how somebody so young has started such a cool company. Well, obviously, I want to learn about your archery background, and that's kind of what I was like. I just want to get to know this dude. I really like some of your stuff that you've built, and I like the brand. I like the branding. That's what I had in mind. Did you have anything you wanted to cover?
No, I mean, I think I assumed, it was gonna be that. I mean, I know I've seen a lot of your work. I like, a lot of what you're doing. I follow you on pretty much every platform, and I stay up to date. And I didn't. You probably were introduced to Ultraview around the same time I knew about ElkShape. So likewise, I have a lot of questions for you and kind of your story, and I think it'll be probably pretty easy for us to, chit chat back and forth. So
Okay, let's do it.
sweet.
I don't know how much time you have. I usually shoot for an hour.
I got until 2:30, so I should have plenty of time.
Okay, well, we'll go until we're tired of it. All right, let's do it. Action, guys. Welcome to the podcast. I'm pumped about today's guest. He's a young entrepreneur. Well, he's younger than me. Actually, everybody's younger than me nowadays. But Kolby Hanley out of GA, right? You're in Georgia.
Yes, sir. Just outside of Atlanta.
Where at? What town?
So we're within, well, depending on traffic, it's 30 minutes to an hour to the center of the city. HQ is in a suburb called Norcross. It's right up 85. If people are driving through Atlanta, they're either on 75 or 85. So if you're on 85, you can spit out your window and hit our warehouse right off the highway.
That's cool. All my family on my dad's side is from Gainesville,
Georgia or Florida?
Georgia.
Georgia. Okay. Yeah. I don't know why I assumed Florida, but I hear
It's a
Gainesville,
bigger,
Florida
it's,
more. Yeah.
yeah, it's a bigger town.
But yeah, no. When I think of Gainesville, I think of Georgia.
Is that, I mean, you're on the opposite whole side of the country now. Is that where were you from?
I'm from here. I'm from the Northwest. My dad's family moved to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, when he was like a senior in high school, and they tried it out for a couple years, and they're like, "Hell no, we're going back to grits. We're going back to Georgia." And then he stayed, and then he met my mom. The rest is history. But I've been to Georgia many times, seeing the family reunions and whatnot. So
Yeah, I kind of got stuck here. The business was never, we'll probably, get into this eventually, but the business was never planned. I was never plotting to start Ultraview. And so right out of college, it kind of became a thing, and I'm stuck here. I probably won't be here my entire life, but this chapter of my life, I'm at least here. So I'm making the best out of it.
where would you like to live, or what's kind of on your list?
My wife asked me that same question the other day, and I thought about it, and I'm like, my final destination would probably have to be where palm trees can live natively.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to end up somewhere, still south, still warm, hopefully next to some water. I'm warm blooded, so I'm from Vermont originally, um, almost in Canada. I was like a hour and a half drive from Canada. Did not like the winter. Gosh, I hated it. It was freezing. It was cold. The snow. It's tough. You gotta. I knew I was going to marry my wife when she didn't know what winter snow tires were. I'm like, yes, you're my girl. She's from North Carolina, but just to move down here, and it's just a totally different atmosphere. Um, Warm blooded. I prefer the South, so probably somewhere where it's nice and warm.
Yeah, we're like an hour and a half from Canada. And the older I get, the more I'm thinking snowbird lifestyle. I love it here in the spring, probably my favorite. Summers are legit. The fall, I'm not here, I'm hunting. And then winter is depressing.
Man.
Winter's tough if you have to deal with it. If you're traveling somewhere to go skiing or to go vacation somewhere, it's beautiful, it's nice. But if you got to wake up at 5 in the morning and go shovel your car off or shovel a path, to get to your car, that's not fun.
Yeah, that's us, man. And it's dark. It's dark when you're shoveling.
Yeah. Oof. Yep. Yep.
No, I usually plow out. Every year I'm snow blowing a path to my archery targets.
I used to do that back in the day. I remember every spring, everybody would be shooting, competitive archery. That's kind of my background. Every spring, all my friends down here in Georgia, they'd be shooting outside 50 meters, nice and warm. I'd have to shovel a path in, a foot of snow just to be able to shoot distance. And, you're shooting your bow, your hands are freezing. You can't feel your release. You can't feel the riser. You're just flying blind. It's, a lot of practice back in the day was outside when it was snowing because I just couldn't shoot inside anywhere close to my house. So.
Oh, so you got into target archery pretty early. Who introduced you to archery?
That's a story. Do you know Survivor Man, like Les Stroud? He used to have a show on like the Discovery Channel called Survivor Man, and it was one of those shows similar to Bear Grylls, where he would
Okay.
go in the woods for like a week in the middle of nowhere. And I was on summer vacation. For some reason, I just loved those shows. They were so interesting to me as a kid. And I was watching it on summer vacation once, and he went out and he was like in the Amazon, and he made a bow with a little tree, and he shot a frog with it in like a little river, and he cooked it up over the fire and ate the frog. And as a 9, 10-year-old kid on summer vacation, I was pumped about that. I'm like, gosh, I want to go do that. So I literally that day, I'm like, I'm just gonna go outside in my backyard and go try to make a bow. And the first bow I made was literally like I cut a little sapling tree down. It was probably about an inch in diameter, maybe. And I used the only like rope or string I had on me at the time was just fishing line. Literally monofilament fishing line. I knew nothing what I was doing. And I wrapped the fishing line around both ends of the bow and twisted it up. And I had one arrow. I don't know, it was probably like a 1990 something Easton arrow that I found in the woods randomly in my backyard. Some bow hunter probably, lobbed an arrow back there. And I was literally just shooting that little sapling bow with this random single arrow that I had found in my backyard for distance. The only thing I cared about was just how far can I get it? And I'd make a bow. I'm like, oh, this string is stretching. I need better string. So then I'd go to the hardware store, find a better string, make a bow. And, I did that for a couple months. And, I had dozens and dozens of these bows that I had just made. And then it was around Christmas time, my parents got me a little tiny archery set for
Oh,
Christmas.
yeah.
Like a what you're picturing in your head if you're walking through a Bass Pro, and it's like a $29.99, arrows, fiberglass arrows included archery set. And that was the only toy I played with, dude. Like I could not put that thing down. I remember I'd go up, I'm still a kid at this point. And
Right.
so I would, if we didn't have school, my parents would drop me off at my grandma's house, and she had squirrels running around all over her backyard. And I remember I didn't even have a sight. I'm just pulling back and lobbing arrows. I just wanted to shoot a squirrel with the damn bow. And I ended up shooting, some of her vinyl siding and put a hole in my grandma's side of her house. And actually, I think that hole is still there to this day. But that's kind of how I got into it from the very start. And then I just never put the archery set down. And it finally got to, my parents like, wow, he's just like obsessed with this. So they took me to the local archery. No one in my family is like a big hunter. My uncle is a big outdoorsman. He goes hunting all the time. But my dad never really introduced me to it. And so they took me down to the local archery shop. It's called Pelkey's Archery. It's in Vermont. It's a great shop, great ownership. Started by the Pelkey's family. It's changed hands now to, I think the owner's John Flurry. And they set me up, man. They did a great job introducing me to the sport. They got me into a entry level hunting bow, got a real set of arrows, and really what the real value that I got was not just the equipment and getting it set up right, but they had lessons. So once a week, my parents would take me down, and I would do. It was a program they had with multiple kids in the program, and they'd teach you good form, good technique, and they actually had a traveling team at this archery shop called the Road Team, and you'd go compete at local tournaments, and that really sucked me in. And I was never too fond of playing, sports in high school. Like I tried soccer This, make sure we bring this back up. Make sure you bring back up Fat Kolby at some point in this podcast. So as a freshman in high school, I was 265 pounds. So that's a great
You're
story.
kidding me.
No. We'll get there. Trust me. So I was, I was never too fond of running back and forth and chasing a ball. I remember I was playing high school and elementary school, and run to that end, run to this end, run to that end. I'm like, why am I chasing this ball back and forth? Like,
Yeah.
so archery, I don't know, it gave me good purpose. Like, I was good at it. It occupied me. There was just something about the sport where even the second I got into it to even today, you can never perfect it. There's always an area of improvement. And, I think there's a nuance of that really sucked me in, and I got obsessed about it. And so I went down the rabbit hole of, competitive archery from a relatively young age. And, I love seeing, when we're at a attack, or when I'm out, kind of in the wild, I love seeing guys getting sucked into the rabbit hole of archery. I mean, it's a great journey. There's so much to learn, from technique to equipment to tuning to making your strings. And it's such a mechanical sport with the equipment, and it's a very advanced sport with the form and technique. There's always something you can be learning and improving. But
Amen to
that's kind of
that.
how I got, yeah, that's kind of how I got sucked in. And I competed. Dude, I was obsessed. Never put it down. I got to the junior USA archery team. So they have like different age groups. And so I made it up to that team, and I had to hustle the whole way with side gigs. I worked, the very first job I got was 11 years old at the local store, because I needed to make money to buy archery equipment to fund my hobby. And, mom and dad were like, well, if you want all this fancy top line equipment, which is not cheap, everybody listening to the podcast knows it's not cheap. They're like, you gotta, go get a job, and then you can spend your money on whatever you want. I'm like, all right. So I went down to the store. Probably was not legal to hire a 11-year-old, but I kind of knew the owner, and I literally, my longest career to date is still working at that store. I worked there for 8 years,
No
not full
kidding.
time, kind of part time, on and off. But I started as a bottle boy. I would sort. In Vermont, you get 5 cents if you bring bottles back to a return. So I would count. People literally bring you their trash. Most people would bring bags full of bottles, but some people would bring you their trash, and you would sort through their trash and count how many bottles were in it. And I give them a slip, said, you had 2,000 bottles at 5 cents a piece. Take this up front. They'll give you cash for it. So that was my first job at the store. And I did that. I went to stocking the soda cooler, locked in a freezer all day. That was not fun. That was my least favorite. I cut red meat. So I was kind of a butcher at the store for a while, and then, worked the registers. I kind of played every role at that store, but that was to fund my obsession of archery and get me to the next tournament, get me to the next qualifying event, on top of paying for the equipment and just funding my archery obsession.
Okay, so when did you? Okay, I love that, by the way. Parents who make kids earn it, I'm into it. Who was the coach while you were developing who really accelerated your ability, like was so instrumental in your journey?
Yeah, so that's another thing I was incredibly blessed with, is the knowledge at Pelkey's Archery was fantastic. They had great coaches. John Fleury, who's the owner now, was my coach, through my very early stages. He got me to the national level. And then once I started competing nationally, you're traveling a lot. It's expensive. You cut costs. You travel with guys. You book a massive B&B. You split it up. You split a rental car. And so I started traveling a lot with what's called the Hornets. The Hornets is a team. The head coach is George Riles. He's also known as Griv, kind of in the industry. This is kind of the catalyst to me being in Georgia, because all of his kids on his team were going to all the events I was going to. So it made a lot of sense for me to tag along, and I made pretty good friends with all the guys on the team. And I was down here all the time to travel. And then George, though, is an amazing, he's been an amazing mentor, coach, personally, professionally, archery wise for me, as I've grown up, and his knowledge that he kind of was able to kind of transfer to me in a lot of ways was he, in the heyday of Martin Archery, Martin Archery, Matthews is kind of a huge juggernaut now, right? Well, back in the day, Martin was the name, right? And so George worked at Martin designing bows. The modern day cam was developed at Martin with George there, right?
Did he live in Washington?
State?
Yeah. He
'Cause
lived
that's
Wow.
where? Gosh, I would know the name.
Walla Walla?
Walla Walla. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So he moved up. His big move was, you know, he jumped into the deep end of the pool. He pulled up his whole life from Georgia. He lived in Georgia his whole life, drove across the country to Washington, Walla Walla, and then ended up in Martin. That was his first like real career job in the industry, and he didn't just stay there. He has kind of played an instrumental role in a lot of big brands through the years. I think he was one of the masterminds behind the renaissance of Stan. So Stan was not what Stan is today, is not what Stan was, in 2000. And so George was, they brought George on the team, and he did a lot of great work there. And then eventually he ended up back in Georgia, and he started his pro shop, the Archery Learning Center in Snellville, Georgia, just outside of Atlanta. And he really found a lot of, he kind of realized his passion was in teaching and passing on his knowledge to the next generation so that, they can stand on the shoulders of the giants before them, have you. And I got plugged in with him and his team. And that's really when I was able to go down more rabbit hole that I didn't even know was there. I remember he showed me how to make strings, and he took me to the string jig and laid it all out, showed me how to count the strands, serve it, twist it up, how to account for the shrinkage when you twist it up. And dude, it was like a drug. I couldn't get enough of it. And I remember he laid up a whole set of string, bus cable, control cable. And then he's like, all right, have at it. Make one for your bow. And then he came back like 2 hours later, and I had one all strung up, ready to rock and roll on my bow, all tuned in, ready to go. He's like, what the hell, dude? Like no one just showed this for once and then goes off and makes one immediately. And I was just so obsessed. Like I every little detail, every little thing, I just couldn't get enough of it. But he's been instrumental on the spark of Ultraview early on. He was very instrumental in helping it get off the ground as well.
Okay, well, I'm definitely familiar with the name. I might have seen some of his videos. It seems like that does he have his own YouTube channel?
He does. You can find him kind of everywhere. If you just Google or YouTube search bar George Riles, he'll pop up all over the place. He works a lot with Last Chance Archery. He works a lot with us. He's in a lot of our instructional videos. And he's been all over, man. And a lot of modern day archery, like a lot of what archery is today, he was instrumental in the first generation of that, 20 years ago.
That's legit, man. And is Martin even in business anymore?
That's a great question. I'm sure. I think so. I don't know.
Yeah.
My first bow was a Martin Cougar or Martin Pantera. I can't remember. In 2001. That's what you bought. You bought a Martin. And then I got sucked into, I think I bought a brand new to me bow in 2003. I bought a Hoyt from my local shop.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, I was actually influenced at the time through media at that time, and there wasn't social, to buy a Hoyt. And I can't remember. I think it was a DVD I watched. A couple of guys out of Utah were shooting a 3D target with their Hoyts at 80 yards, and they were just pounding. And I'm like, oh, that's what I need. I need a Hoyt, and then I can do that. I'm kind of laughing at myself now thinking that, but I knew nothing. And I didn't have a George Riles in my back pocket. I'm extremely jealous. A lot of folks listening probably getting into archery. Obviously, I think archery has exploded the last few years, especially post-COVID. But the thing I've tried to preach so much, and I want to just bring it to you, is getting instruction and not learning poor habits initially will save you so much time. Don't do it the way I did. Do it the way Kolby did, and he got instruction. I still have to undo bad habits that were established early on.
Yeah. And I mean, dude, that's not to say I don't have bad habits, right? Like there are still things that I learned even with great coaches. There are still some habits that I had that are very difficult. I have to be very conscientious of making sure I don't do certain things in the shot process, or I don't shoot nearly as much as I used to, nowadays. But I find if I am shooting a bow for, a couple hours at a time, I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. I've totally forgot about that. This is how, when I come in, make sure I do this step and then that step. And then it's, I've developed some rust a little bit, and yeah, it's getting a good foundation. And what I can see are really young kids that George has been able to teach the fundamentals to early on, and they can really ingrain it as they grow in. Dude, their form, their execution, it is an art. Like a it's a beautiful to see that the relaxed forearms, the alignment, and then just it pop off. It's like, yep, that kid's got some magic. You can like pluck them out of crowd.
Yeah, no, that's legit. So then I kind of want to bridge that gap of like, when did your competitive archery days wind down / what did you study in college / how old are you today?
Yeah, actually, that's a lot of good slashes there because they're all connected. So, my competitive archery started to wind down during college. It was a lot to manage. Now you can do it. I've seen people do it very successfully. I think Braden Galantine may have done it. I know Erica Jones, a high level female competitive archer, was getting a degree while winning world championships. But it was very difficult to balance that. And then when Ultraview happened to have just started, dude, my time, I actually, this is a great story. I ended up in the hospital um, in 2017, maybe 2018, because this was the summer. I decided, I was like, okay, I'm gonna pursue this side hustle and see if I can get this off the ground. And I was a student at Georgia Tech. I was pursuing a material science engineering degree. Um, I was taking summer class. I transferred to Tech, so I lost some credits. I had to make up some ground. So I was taking summer classes, differential equations. Definitely not an easy class for an engineer. Differential equations. I was doing undergraduate research at the time. So I was working in a lab on campus doing battery research. Um, I was working nights downtown in Atlanta. There was this sign company at a convention center where every night you kind of had to go in and freshen up the banners or the vinyl for different trade shows that were coming into town. And it was from 7 p.m. until, you kind of got the job done. And so I was doing that to make some cash while having 3D printers. At the time, Ultraview was 3D printed grips, release accessories, and kind of a light kit. So I was doing all of that at the same time and competing still. So I was doing that all at the same time. And I literally remember I went to the doctor. I went to like the emergency care or some like hospital thing because my heart, like I would stand up and like my heart would like seize and beat really hard. And like I would almost kind of pass out. And I remember it vividly to this day. They hooked me up to like the EKG thing. It's like you're being abducted by aliens, and you got all these things. And the doctor looked at me and she said, "Well, what's going on, honey? Like what brings you in today? What's going on in your life?" And I kind of told her everything that I was kind of doing. She looked at me and she said, "Honey, you got to slow down."
Really? Wow.
And I think that the reason why I actually had heart issues was I was eating discounted Walmart burritos at the time, penny pinching, And at the Walmart, they'd have this in like the walk-in cooler area, burritos that came in unfrozen, and they were like 50-cent, 3,000 calorie, sodium filled burritos. I'd eat one at like 11 o'clock for breakfast / lunch, and then I'd eat one at like 6 for dinner. And, after a couple weeks of doing that, it did not serve me very well. So that is when, to answer your original question, that is kind of when my competitive archery kind of dipped down as my professional career, if that's what you want to call it, kind of spun up. And so that's when I decided, all right, I probably don't have to be working nights downtown anymore. So let's get that off my plate, so I can spend more time with Ultraview and sleeping. I started, Ultraview got bigger every day. We were getting bigger. And so I could, afford a little bit more than 50-cent burritos to eat. And that was, one time I've just worked myself into the ground. And, I've had, even in recent years, over the last couple of years, I've ended up in doctor's offices just maxed out, man. I got one speed, it is on. And, it's been tough to manage it, but, trying to prioritize my health is kind of in the front of my brain now as I'm getting a little bit older. I am, answer your last question on that, I guess. I just turned 27.
I knew you were a pup. I told I got my main content creator. He works full time for me. He's 28. I'm like, I got a sweet pod coming up tomorrow, and I think this dude's younger than you. So I was right, Jeff.
Just turned 27, 1997. But dude, I feel like I'm a 40-something-year-old with the amount of stuff I got going on. Ugh.
Well, good for you to something's got to give. And for all of us, we got to look in the mirror occasionally and evaluate. That's why I love elk hunting, man. I get so much self-reflection time in the evenings when it's dark and I'm in a tent and I'm by myself on a mountain. I can kind of look back and evaluate the last, and it's not pretty. It never is. I am hard on myself, but I'm always just disappointed in how self-absorbed I've become or how much energy I'm putting into something that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. 2017 is a lot earlier than I thought, Kolby. So when you said who started Ultraview, like origin story, and kind of take us through, I think this is like the meat of the pod, like how you've gotten to where you're at and where do you want to go?
Yeah. So to the first couple weeks, months, maybe, you could consider it as just me. Although very, very quickly, a lot of friends got involved very early on. So the genesis story of Ultraview is very closely tied to what is actually the nation's largest undergraduate invention competition, hosted at Georgia Tech. I was forced to do it by all of my friends at Tech. And long story short on that one, I ended up in the finals pitching, live audience, judges, and the winner gets, $20,000, no strings attached, seed money, patent, startup accelerator acceptance, all that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
That was when that competition was when I'm like, okay, like this is something I want to do. I want to win this damn thing. I needed videos, marketing material. I needed a great pitch, a great story to tell. And that's when I started bringing in the help of Chris and then George Riles also helped a lot with that. But then on the back end of just business operations, Zach Harris, we call him Bruce. He was one of our very original employees at Ultraview as well. And he was, dude, we're so young. I remember I had to go pick him up from his house and bring him to, the basement that we were operating in at the time because he couldn't even drive. And, Bruce has been here since day one. He's still here. He works on the product team, developing new products every day. And so when it became, very early on, I tried to bring in people who were highly motivated and had a very similar, core value set. And, we're trying to do something special here at Ultraview. Our core passion or our core values at the company are passion, grit, and growth. That's what started the company. That's what's gotten us here. And that's what's going to continue to have us move forward. And every single person that's been involved since day one shares that core value. And it started as like a side hustle. I was spending so much time in the maker labs at Georgia Tech. I justified purchasing my own 3D printer by the sole fact that, I'm going to sell enough gadgets off of this printer, release accessories or grips or light kits to just pay for the 3D printer. And then it wasn't 2 or 3 weeks after I got that printer, and I'm like, oh shit, I need another one. I need another one. I need another one. So Bruce at the time, I'd give him a 5-gallon bucket of 3D printed parts on like a Saturday, pick it back up next weekend, and they'd be all cleaned up, ready to ship to customers. Chris helped a lot very early on with marketing, storytelling, video editing, pictures. And then George was a great early mentor as well, just when it came to product design, pushing us in the right direction. Oh, don't go that way. We tried that. It didn't work for these reasons. And that was kind of the genesis story. But we, since we've been out of a dorm room, what we've really wanted to do is just make premium archery equipment. Everyone here, was going down these same rabbit holes we've gone down with our archery, and we're all very passionate about the sport. It's done a lot for us. And we just want to make the best equipment that we possibly can, for ourselves. And then if we wouldn't make it for ourselves, then it's nothing that we would actually sell to customers or feel comfortable recommending to friends and family. And so I think what makes us special is we start with what does the archer need? What do bow hunters need? What are their problems? And then we develop products to nichely meet those problems. And what we don't do is we don't confine ourselves in with our current resources at hand. We don't go, we can't make that because XYZ. We don't have the machines, or we don't have an electrical engineer, so we can't do that, or we don't have a programmer, we can't do that. And I think that's what sets our product team apart, is they're so strong with, they design the idea first to solve real problems for archers and bow hunters, and then they do the engineering to figure out how to bring it to life. And that's how every single one of our products has come to light. And now we're focused on curating unrivaled customer experiences, and just making what we believe are premium pieces of equipment.
Okay, well, it's a very cool backstory. You've mentioned Chris twice. Is that Chris B?
Yes.
Okay. So you guys are pretty tight then. Did you guys go to college together, or?
So I'm going to I realize this door is cracked. I'm going to close it so sound doesn't come in. Chris and I actually met competing. So around the same time I was traveling a lot, Chris was too. He was on the junior USA teams, traveling, competing, and actually at the time we were kind of rivals. Number one, number two, like battling it out as to who's gonna be on the top of that list at the end of Sunday. And that's how we met and crossed paths. And around the same time Ultraview started, Chris started a little bit before I did on the YouTube stuff. But when I needed video editing, pictures, marketing, storytelling, ideation, I remember I called him. I think Chris may correct me on this, but I think the first time I called him, where we started working together, business wise, was for Adventure Prize. I needed good marketing material, good video, good storytelling, on this product we developed. And I'm like, well, I know Chris. I know Chris is out there doing these YouTube videos, and his content's fun and exciting, and he knows, his way around a camera. So let me give him a call and see if he wants to, work on some videos with me. And I did. I just buzzed him, said, hey, Chris, what's going on? And then ever since then, we've just kind of worked together. Chris has been involved with UV almost since day one behind the scenes. Likewise, a lot of Chris's brand and business and his strategies, we talk all the time. On my way home, I'm either calling him or Taylor. And, if Chris doesn't answer, I bounce to Taylor. If Taylor doesn't answer, I bounce to Chris. And yeah, we're pretty good friends.
That's cool. I don't have a lot of history with Chris. I know I talked to him last year at TAC in Utah, and I found out he was mad at me. I was like, "Why are you mad at me?" And he's like, "You made this video," and I'm like, "Oh, I already know what you're talking about." It was like 2020 or 2021. I had a producer that I hired for my channel, and he filmed me text Chris and then leave Chris a voicemail, and then we just made fun of Chris for not calling me back. And he was offended by that. And I was like, bro, no harm, no foul, nothing but respect. Because I think Chris is a YouTube genius. And what I mean by that is you can't just hop on YouTube and be good at it. Like, it's not going to work for 99.9% of people. You're going to get 200 views. You're going to make 10 videos and you're going to quit. You're going to quit. YouTube to me is like science that it's like a moving target. Like I've been doing YouTube for over 10 years and I have tried so many different things and I still to this day will make a banger video in my opinion. I'm like, oh my God, this is going to crush and it will flop immediately. And then I'll half-ass some video. I could almost film it on an iPhone and just be like, I'm throwing this up and it crushes. So to this day, I still don't have YouTube figured out, but what I have figured out is that I ain't never going to quit. Like I enjoy making content. And I say that because I think I don't consume a lot of Chris's content, but from whatever I've ever seen, like you said, he knows a camera, he knows how to tell a story, he knows how to have fun, and he's really good at archery. Like those are some of the ingredients you need. So I did not know Chris was involved. That's so cool to hear that you guys have a deep history.
Yeah, and I think we actually are like born like a day or two apart too, Okay. So maybe it was just like that time, if you were born between April and May in 1997, maybe you're just destined to be into archery for the rest of your life or something. I don't know.
No, that's exciting. I want to talk about Fat Kolby because I didn't know, like I'm looking at you right now. You look like you could eat a sandwich right now. You could afford a sandwich. You look lean and mean. What do you weigh right now?
175 to 180, depending on the day. That's what I weigh now.
What's a typical day in the life of your food intake? I imagine it's no longer expiring burritos from Walmart.
No. Actually, this is great. I wanted to talk to you about some of this stuff because I follow your page and I follow a lot of people like you. I find if I'm following, nutrition, fitness people, it keeps it at the forefront of my mind and I prioritize it more in my life. And I know it's something that I have always tried to prioritize since I've learned about it and kind of changed myself from a young age. And so, I draw a lot of inspiration from your content, just seeing you out there killing it. But a typical day in the life right now is not great. But I'll wake up and I'll eat a light breakfast. Typically it's 1 or 2 orders of like egg white bites from Starbucks. I will typically skip lunch and or have a RX bar. We have one of the perks of working at Ultraview, I suppose, is our break room is stocked full of snacks and energy drinks and whatever you want. Once a week we make a run to Costco and we stock up. And RX bars are typically my lunch. And then for dinner, we'll try to cook in-house best we can. If not, we order in or go out for sushi. Dude, I eat so much sushi. I love it. And now that's typically my current day now. And I'll try to, just getting a walk. I'll go for like a 3-mile walk. There's a path behind our house. It's littered with deer. If you've seen any Seek One's content, like there's like a nature preserve like right behind our house. So no one can like go in there or touch it. And it's right in suburban Atlanta. Dude, it is littered with deer. We actually saw 3 fresh baby fawns last night. Like they must have just popped out, dude.
I love it. Okay.
And just getting a 3-mile walk in on that path, I'll be like tight the next day. It's not good right now. But when my work schedule kind of dies down, this is a busy part of the year for us. I try to get a workout in. I pull ups, just a lot of body weight stuff, pull ups, push ups, bands. I used to go to the gym, and I guess we can pull Fat Colby out of the bag now. So freshman year of high school, it's been a while since I've told the story. I got to make sure I get it right. I think freshman year of high school, I was 265 pounds. And then the summer between freshman year of high school and sophomore year of high school, I dropped, I think it was like 65 pounds in 3 months. Because my second semester of high school, I took a health class. And for some reason or another, it just really motivated me to change how I was living. And I went from the fat kid, like out 265 pounds I don't know how old you are as a freshman in high school. Like, what are you, 14?
Yeah.
You're a big kid. And then I immediately changed, like a snap of a finger, it's like my entire thought process behind food and physical exercise and everything changed. Lost a lot of weight really quickly. Came into the first day of my sophomore year, and everybody was like, people literally didn't recognize me. They thought I was a new kid. And I remember my second week in, and one of the teachers went like, "Wait a second, you're Kolby." Oh, yep, same person. And ever since then, I've prioritized it. The best shape I've actually been in was probably senior year of high school, freshman year of college. Dude, I was a gym rat. Like, because senior year of high school, if you got your shit figured out, it's not a really tough year. I had a lot of like blank classes and free time, so I was in the gym all the time. I was like, timing my creatine intake with carbs for blood sugar reasons. And like, I had a journal and I was tracking everything. And dude, I got in some great shape. And then, life just kind of took hold again, and I'm not in that great shape anymore, but I still prioritize it. I still try to stay healthy, move myself, eat good. And, you know, it's something I've kind of always struggled with, but that's why I've tried to prioritize following, health nutrition pages. I just keep it at the front of my mind.
A couple things I thought of while you were sharing is like, and I want to ask you this, but from 7th to 8th grade, I didn't hit like a massive puberty burst. I was already kind of developing, but like I had a mentor teach me how to lift weights. My parents were building a house and we rented out this dude's basement. They were a family friend. It was a huge house. And so this guy is like literally renting to my parents and their 3 kids. He's got a legit weight set downstairs and he catches me on his weights, like dicking around. And he's like, he was a pretty nice guy, but he was kind of like super serious for a second. He's like, look, man, if you want to mess around, that's fine. But if you actually want to like have me show you how to do that properly, I can help you like put on muscle and get stronger.
Let's do it for real.
And I was like, I'm all in. And that's my personality. One speed, all in. So he like lays out a diet, a food plan for me to gain weight and gives me supplements for free and shows me how to lift. And I walked into 8th grade with people not recognizing me because I literally put on like 20 or 30 pounds. I can't remember. I remember I wrestled like at 100 pounds in 7th grade and then ended up wrestling like at 140 in 8th grade. And I was strong and people were like, notice. And what that did for me is it made me feel good about myself and it made all the work pay off. And I wanted to ask you, when the teachers didn't recognize you and you had lost all that weight, how did that make you feel?
Yeah, it's funny. I don't know. I was thinking about this just the other night, and I think had I not lost all that weight in that way, it probably would have made a pretty big difference of the rest of my life, because I focused on something for 3 or 4 months and put everything I had into it. It was not easy. Eating good. I was at a huge calorie deficit. I mean, it was not a healthy way to do it.
Sure.
I was eating like 1,200 calories a day and spending like 60 minutes on an elliptical every day at least. But to your point, everybody noticed, and it felt like I had accomplished something. I mean, I did accomplish something amazing, and it gave me a lot of confidence. That confidence then just like gave me more momentum. And I think it showed me the benefits of just staying hyper focused on something and just working your ass off, putting your head down, working hard, staying focused. And then, eventually it's going to, pay off in the end. And, as a metaphor, that's what I feel like I'm doing right now, man. Like the last, the last 5 years, man, it's just been like head down, working my ass off, like just grinding, not looking in the rearview mirror, just always looking forward, go, 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 go. Like, trying to make great decisions along the way, trying to instill that same thought process, the core values into our team here. And, had I not done that first really hard thing of losing the weight, it probably would have made a pretty big impact on, me as a person.
I couldn't agree more. And I was also that knucklehead in high school. My senior year, the year that's pretty easy, I was the guy carrying around a gallon of water to all my classes with a lunchbox.
Me too. Yeah.
With all my food, and I was timing creatine as well. So I laughed when you said that.
I was so dumb. I was carrying a gallon too, and I remember I would put, this is not how you're supposed to do it. And it's been so long since I've, educated myself on, supplements and stuff. But what I do remember is I'd put creatine monohydrate into my gallon of water in the morning. And it took me like 2 weeks to realize that shit didn't dissolve in the water. It was basically just like salt or sand in the bottom of the gallon. And I remember tipping it up and realizing like it was just all in the bottom of the gallon. And so, yeah, I mean, I was doing the same thing, but it was, I still work really hard at trying to, and I still like, I'll at the beach, take my shirt off. You can still tell I was a fat kid. Like I'll never look great. And that honestly is something that I struggle with a lot, is because I'll never, if I, even in my best shape, deadlifting, benching crazy numbers, it was in super great shape. I still didn't look, if I was never the fat kid, I'm never going to look like I was if I had always been healthy. And that's the tough part for me. But what it does is it reminds me, it reminds me of why I'm doing it. And, I'll see pictures of myself in great shape. My fitness is like a sine wave. It's up and down and up and down. And I'll see a picture, 3 years ago. Oh man, Kolby, you look great. But then I'm like, wait a second. I didn't, when I took that picture, I didn't feel like I was looking great then. I didn't appreciate it then. I only appreciate it now because I've degraded a little bit. And so, it's just kind of something that I always am aware of. Like I am, even though right now I'm prioritizing work and not, being in great shape right now, I am fortunate that I am, in the shape that I am now and not what I would be in if I never had lost that weight or made that change in my life as a 14-year-old to begin with,
I love that. And what you said earlier was like that confidence that you earned led to continuous momentum. And then you kind of relayed it into Ultraview and how you have never looked in the rearview mirror. You have been grinding head down. So I guess we got to circle back to that question, is like, what's your vision for Ultraview going forward, man? Where are you at now and where are you trying to be?
I've said this before, like at the highest level, our mission, 3 words: unrivaled customer experiences. Everything we do, like unrivaled customer experience. That's what's driving us. Core values, passion, grit, growth. But, to paint a better picture, we don't want to have the most products. We want to have, in what is our opinion, the best products that we can offer to our customers. So what you won't see, it may be easier to tell you what you won't see out of Ultraview, is a dozen different releases in our release category, right? You won't see a dozen different sights or scopes in our sights and scopes category. We work really hard on developing the best version of what we believe a release or a sight or a scope is. And we're going to take that same vision across, all categories. And, people are always asking, oh, what's next? What's next? Is a XYZ next? And I'm like, yep. Because, we want to develop and offer the best product in each category. And then it transitions to playing the category game. And they're like, oh, well, what about an arrow? I'm like, well, an arrow is a category. And they're like, oh, well, what about a rest? I'm like, that is also a category. And they're like, even before we had a site, they're like, a site? I'm like, yep, that's a category. So, we do have a little bit of a secretive, like, we don't want to know people, we don't want to disclose what we're coming out with next, but we always have irons in the fire, and some of the work that I can see the guys doing right now, they're just hitting their stride, man. Like, we haven't even had a full product development team for, this will be 2 years and counting. So, that first year was just getting on their feet, learning the market, learning the products, learning the company, learning the culture. And just now are we at a point where we're jogging,
That's
like
exciting.
we just are warmed up. Right. And so we're working really hard here, and they've already had a lot of great success with the products they have made, slider from start to finish. UV slider was an idea, nothing more than thoughts in all of our heads. We knew we were going to do it. It's not like all of a sudden one day we were like, oh, we're going to come out with a sliding sight. We knew we were going to do it, but it went from ideas to like a real thing in 11 and a half months. And the work, the intellectual property, the innovation, all the problems they had to solve to make, the most premium sliding site in the market, they worked their asses off, man. Like, they wanted to kill me every other day when I came into the office, because, we were pushing them so hard, but, they made a really awesome piece of equipment.
Yeah, and I'm sure the last thing they were, oh, great, here comes Kolby to tell us what he doesn't like about this rendition, number 975, on to 976. That's cool. I got one of the first UV sliders. I didn't know you. It's pretty obvious. I didn't know Chris B was part of your squad. I'm just in my lane I'm just thinking about elk hunting. I think everyone knows that. I'm pretty simple. And I get this box and I'm like, okay, I got a decent YouTube channel. That's probably why I got this. Open it up, and there was a really cool note in there. And it was like, hey man, just go try this. We don't expect a single thing in return. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. And I made a video on it because I wanted to, and I knew it was coming out. And then the thing stayed on my bow. I was fortunate to shoot a lift 29 and a half. I got it August 24th. Pretty spoiled, very honored, humbled to do that. Threw it on that. Dude, I took it out hunting. I was like, I liked it that much that I took it to the field, man. And I had my doubts, Kolby. I was like, this thing has got a 3D printed vibe. I'm going to break it immediately. I brought backup stuff just in case. It's still on my bow. It's still there. And so for the record, for anyone listening, I think a lot of people assume if I talk about something that I'm paid to do it, which sucks. I hate that. But I've never got a check or a dime from UV. I've gotten a free site, and I actually really liked it. And then I had, I've listened to some feedback, and I actually have a video that I'm editing in the other room right now that'll go out in a week and a half. And it's how to sight in your UV from, like, I've watched a few people do videos on it, and I'm like, I think I can do a better job. I think I can use a macro lens. I can get in there tight, and I can literally show every little thing you need to do to get how easy it is. And so that's coming out in a week and a half. And in that video at the end, I say, and I'm not taking it out, the only things that I have heard negatively about UV is I've heard a couple negative comments about customer service not being able to get a hold of anyone. Number two, I've heard that the pins are dark if you can't run a light. And so I'm going to ask you my hard questions. Tell me about your customer service team and what's your response to those kind of comments. We'll start there.
Yeah. So customer service team, our mission's unrivaled customer experiences. We're humans. Sometimes we miss on our mission, but our misses are areas to learn on where we have to improve. Over the last, I'll tell you this, dude, when we launched, when UV Slider popped off, we knew it was a huge category, and it was filling a void, and we knew it was going to be a big deal when we let the cat out of the bag. We had absolutely no idea the tidal wave we had no idea the tidal wave that was about to come at us. And every every sector of the company, from product to operations to marketing to customer service, was taxed and dialed to 11. And, there was a couple months there where it was, it was tough on the customer service side, where we were way understaffed. And I think this is where maybe some people didn't have the best experiences with us, is when we were staffing up and we had new people on our team that weren't quite yet familiar with how UV is operating, as how we want to treat our customers and how our experience works. But we've fixed a lot of that now. So we have full staff. Also, for the longest time, we didn't have like a phone line. Just, it was a bandwidth thing. And we have a phone hours now, so guys can text in. They can text us. They can call us. We got a team there, and so yeah, I mean, we may have missed the ball on a couple inquiries, but we take those lessons to learn from them. We try to pivot fast as we can. And they got a full team out there right now that's just, they're working their butts off every day. But what I really see is they care a lot, about the customers. They don't want to, they don't want to say no. Although I will tell you, there are some instances where, sometimes we got to say no. It just doesn't make sense, and that's rare, very rare. But they've been doing a great job lately, and we're back on our feet there. The other one, what was the other one? Oh, pin brightness. The pin brightness thing kind of surprised me, because when we are developing a product, typically we kind of, other people will use it in the field before we launch it. We'll know our areas of improvement even before. And we're, a lot of the times when we launch a product, we're already working in, what are we fixing on this for the second gen, third gen? How are we going to improve on this? Nothing's perfect, right? And not once did anyone ever say anything about pin brightness until the last, couple months. And actually, a lot of guys here, Chris included, we prefer very, very tiny pins that are not like in your face bright, but just bright enough to where you can use them as an aiming point, so it doesn't cover up whatever the hell you're trying to hit. Mm-hmm. And so it wasn't a huge deal for us. We had scopes on the market for years before coming out with the sight. And no one ever talked about pin brightness. I think it's just with slider getting to the huge scale that it's at now, there are some people out there who prefer brighter pins, although it comes with an integrated light. Now, there are some states, you can't use a light. Most states, most bow hunters can, and that solves the problem. But it's, it was surprising for me personally. It doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother a lot of people on the team. We know it's an area for improvement. We're going to attack it 100%. Why would we not? But a pro tip, I think, just looking at it now, now that it's been brought up, is I find our vertical posts are brighter than our horizontal posts. So, if you're running the new V3 pin or any of the vertical posts, I personally find they're brighter. Another thing on the pins is our slider pins are 15 thou, which a lot of guys may be used to 19 thou pins, which are bigger, and of course are going to be bigger and brighter. But the thing with the slider, we were kind of boxed in on our pins because we have these channels that are molded into this lens cartridge, and we needed 3 pins. You can't fit 3 19 thou pins into this tubing up front. It just doesn't fit. So 15 is as big as we can get on slider, unless you get I only have 10 thou here, but unless you get like a 2-pin post, you can get one of these guys in 19 thou, and that sucker's in your face bright.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I like several things about this slider. I guess I'll just kind of go overview and get maybe some commentary from you. And then I have one personal thing I want to talk about with one of your other products, because I got you here. I got to take advantage of this. So I just built a 29.5 backup. The lifts were backed up. I just now got my second bow that I had ordered back in July of 2023. So I got it and I built my backup bow. I like having a backup bow. Things happen when you party with elk. And I got the UV slider and I put it in. And I just love that I didn't use a Hamsky Gen 2. I slide it in the bridge lock. I got string levels. I make a small, teeny, tiny adjustment so that the bubble matches the string. And I know it comes out of the factory square. How important was that particular part of your guys' design, and potentially maybe elaborate what I'm trying to articulate here on what that feature really means to people for simplicity?
Yeah. So to answer that, I'm gonna back all the way up to just the architecture of the site as the whole. Because if you look at the slider, let me just take this out of the bow. Every design decision that you make in making a product has a cascading effect. And if you look at slider and the mechanism that the drive is past the vertical rack, you're going to notice it's a lot more condensed. It's kind of just one unit with not a lot of joints and bolts and areas where it can move and develop points of inconsistency. When you're looking at this guy, everything, all the magic's condensed right into here. The windage is nested in our elevation. We call that our dual dial. It eliminates further joints away from your rack. And one of the unique things we could do, because it was so condensed and streamlined and simple, is we could put all your leveling in what we call the yaw block, your joint between your rail and your rack. And you're not going to need a whole bunch more adjustments and bolts out past that. And so what we're able to do is, you still should put it on your bow, like you said, and double check and line it up and all that. Because depending on how you should actually do it is, you should be a full draw with how you are holding the bow if you really want to go deep on it.
Mm-hmm.
But we slip it in, we double check. It's got marks here so you can line it up and visual it. But the level, the thing I love about it is the level in the scope is the level you can use to level your damn sight. You could kind of just assume that, but it's not that simple in archery, because archery equipment is hard to design and develop, but they worked really hard at that. And so that was actually, it took a couple guys, I saw a couple guys looking at it and going, wait a second, where am I going to put the level on this? I'm like, just use the level in the damn scope and get it lined up. And there were a lot of people skeptical about it at first. Oh, wait a second. What is that going to do to XYZ? And I'm like, just go do it. Go sight it in, set it up, go shoot. And dude, it just works. It's so simple, so easy to use. I'm actually excited to see your video on setting it up, because there is so much, there's so many tips and tricks with slider. The thing is it's a unique way to sight it in. It's not similar to other sliding sights. But if you do it right, use your middle pin and follow the steps, and then take your cartridge out and then line up 20, 30, 40, or however you do it. Dude, every time I do that, it still blows my mind to just get your tape number, find your tape, take your 3 pins, line up 1, 2, 3 on 20, 30, 40. Some guys do 30, 40, 50. Slap it in the sight, and then I'll be damned if you got 20, 30, 40 hitting dead nuts. And it's it just works. It's so easy.
And to add to that, which you will see in this video, putting a sight tape on a rail is so hard to do with when you have big fat fingers like mine. You unscrew the plate, you take the plate out, you set it on the desk, and you can put it on, the sight tape on perfectly. And the way that your guys' system is you can run dual sight tapes. Maybe you want to run 2 different arrow setups, or you want to leave your sight in tape on the backside, great. Or you can for that bow, that bottom pin, I wanted to see where it would end up at after I did the sight in process. And for those listening, this will make more sense if you just watch the damn video. It was 62-yard pin. That's what my bottom pin is. Well, I have duplicate sight tapes from you guys. So I grabbed the same sight tape, put it on the backside. I cut it so it starts at 62 and slides down to 140. And I got my little tack pin if I wanted to, or whatever. But love the pin size. Didn't really think that, I thought maybe you guys were just being creative, like 0.015. I'm like, yeah, man, that is the sweet spot. Sometimes 0.010 is too small. I definitely don't like 0.019. I 0.1. Yeah. Like I just thought it was genius. I love the pin size, to be honest with you. And then I got my hands on the V3, like the vertical cartridge pretty early. And I was like, yes, this is the sight picture that Dan likes. Like this is, a lot of people are going to vibe with this. And so I think it's ergonomically, but it's probably, I could rattle off so many features, but the things I like the most about your sight is that one, I can take the sight off and put it away for traveling, which I travel with my bow a lot. Have bow, will travel. Number two, I think the size of the rail just makes so much more sense. I've been shortchanged on many sites where I just run out of real estate. So I like that. And then all in all, like it's just it goes back to the ergonomics. Like I can't think of a better size of a wheel to take your brake off, rotate. You guys did some things. And so I think it's going to be hard to beat that sight, which is why I'm running it.
The thing we learned in developing a sliding sight is we spent a lot of time in what we call phase 0, which is like the ideation phase of the product development process. And we spent a lot of time going like, what is important for a sliding sight? Like what makes a good sliding sight good? You know, and there's so many features packed into this. That list is not short, right? But what we realized is the only thing that moves with a sliding sight is like your marks. And if it's a sliding sight, you're moving it. And we found most sliding sights on the market were actually very difficult to slide. And so ergonomics was top on our list. And because ergonomics, if it's easy to use, your sliding sight, everything else cascading from that's going to be easy. And then we prioritized the whole design from there down to, we had multiple ideas, like multiple options of this, down to the decision that we didn't want a wheel. So there's sliding sights out there where as you adjust your wheel, the wheel's stationary and it moves your rack. But we didn't like that because if you move one of those, you can't offhandedly without looking at it or just really knowing what direction it's moving. Whereas if the wheel moves with your scope, you can move it and just by feel, A, know what direction it's moving, and B, kind of get a rough gauge for how far you've moved it. And even micro decisions like that went into developing the ergonomics, like you said, the lock location, and everything has a cascading effect.
Yesterday where I filmed this video, I shot 1, 2, 3, 4 arrows to get my middle pin dialed at 20. First one was hot, moved it up a little, got lucky, and I had a horizontal line. I didn't care about left or rights. I just wanted, I want to hit this little black tape line. Boom, boom, boom. I was like, okay, shit, that was pretty cool. And then, like you said, I just ergonomically kind of felt where I thought 60 should be based on all my reps with it.
Yeah.
Walked back to 60, shot 3 arrows, 1, 2, 3. And then from that distance, you can't, like, it looks like they're hitting. I got to go up there and tell, am I a little high, a little low? All 3 on the black horizontal line. And it's on video, so I promised no fancy editing. I was like, done.
That's something I've noticed too, is just like the time it takes me to sight in my UV slider is like half of that of any other sliding sight that I've had to do. And I don't know what it is, but for me, a big thing for me is the how fine you can move it. You know, can you move it micro adjustments very fine without it jumping? And then the biggest thing are the pins. You know, our pins are super sharp, like razor sharp. If you quick break this thing apart wrong, you'll cut your thumb.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like, I want those pins so sharp they'll make you bleed, because you can, you know, I think you're actually running our speed tapes, right? What tape number are you?
Yesterday was number 4. It wasn't a speed tape.
Wasn't at some point you were using negative tapes?
Yeah, last year's, like, straight out of the factory, I ordered an 8. It was a prototype lift. Okay, let's be honest. It was like one of like the 3rd lift they made or 4th. And I asked for 80. And I telling you, that thing was like 86 pounds. And I was shooting a very light arrow, 425. And number 1 wasn't cutting it.
I think you were actually the reason. I don't know if I caught wind of that, but I'm like, we got to get Dan some speed tapes. And like, well, our tapes stop at 0. They're like, what do we call them? S1, S2 for speed? I said, no. go negative, baby.
I love it.
-1, -2.
Yeah, I pointed that out on the video yesterday. I was like, hey, these are your speed tapes. They're all negative. It makes more sense to me. So I think that was a good call, man. I like that.
The super fine tipped indicators, the fact that you can move your indicators to match your pins, the super micro adjustments to the wheel with the anti backlash system. I mean, the whole thing, like, I think all of that goes into why it's very quick, easy to set up, just because it's just a great site,
No, I'm really into it. Okay, here's my last question coming at you guys a little bit. So I like a thumb button. UV makes a button. I've tried it. Daniel has a short draw length. I'm 26.5 with Matthews. And when I use the UV button, I feel like I could drop down to a 26 because that neck is long. So
I'm so glad you're asking this.
I think, okay, well, I had a question, but I'm going to save it. What's your response to that?
So I actually, like I said, I follow your pages and I know you have a super short neck. And I actually, if you're gonna clip this out and put like a reel out, this may be the clip for it, because
Let's do it.
I would love to tell the world why UV Button's neck is longer than what you typically see. The main reason why is a lot of guys they'll shove their face into their string, right? And it's actually shocking. If you have a hooter shooter, I highly recommend doing this. It's an awesome test. If you put a bow in a hooter shooter and you put, if you just barely touch the string at full draw, left or right, like just barely touch it with your finger, at 20 yards, there'll be, a 1 or 2 inch impact difference point. And so what a lot of guys don't realize is how much inconsistency they have with their left and rights because of their face contact.
Yeah.
And so when we develop our products, we try to develop them for, mass market, right? And we found that most guys, if they had a slightly longer neck, what it was doing is it was bringing that string off of their face a little bit from how they typically anchor, and it was shortening their groups. Their groups went from football size to round and in the middle. And then another reason why is if you have any inconsistency with kind of how you're anchoring or holding your release, because you have a longer lever arm from the hook to your finger beds, that lever arm is going to give more leverage. So if there is an inconsistency, it's going to stay more in line than if it's really short, you can torque it more. Now, this is all nitpicky. Does it really matter that much? Probably not. But I will say we did find a significant difference with group sizes for the average archer. It went from football to round if you take that string off their face. That was the motivating factor behind it. Now, I do think we could be a little bit shorter on our neck length. Looking at where it's at now and what guys like you prefer, I think we could shorten it up a little bit. But that is a little bit of the magic that goes into UV Button is, those little things that we don't really even market or talk about is if guys are shooting a short button and they have inconsistency, not every bow hunter is shooting as much as you are. You're thousands of arrows, in a season. And if guys are only pulling back once or twice a week, their face contact is going to be inconsistent. If you bump that off their face some, their groups are going to go. And our number one metric is accuracy, right? Like, speed doesn't matter much if you can't hit what you want to hit. And so those were the decisions that were made in the design process of UV Button to get our neck length to where it's at. So yeah, that's why it's longer than what you typically see.
Love it. No, I really love the ergonomics and the grip and the fit and the way that you can manipulate what you put on the barrel. You guys are a super clean brand. Really impressed with what you've done. Honestly, for how young you are, you may not feel this way because you're in the middle of it. You're grinding. You're an entrepreneur. You never can clock out. Dude, you guys are kicking ass and you're doing it right. Just make a proto, send it my way, shorten up that neck a little bit. Let me test it out.
Okay.
Last question. Are you going elk hunting this year, my dude?
I don't think it's in the calendar this year. By the end of the year, everybody's probably going to know why. There's a lot of big, crazy irons in the fire.
Okay.
Although like I actually, Chris is literally on my phone all the time. Like, dude, we can't just do this last second. We got to get this booked. We got to get this booked. So I am, and I got to make it a priority, right? It's like the excuse is, oh, I don't have time to go work out. It's like, no, it's just not a priority for you.
Correct. Yeah.
And I understand that there's no excuse other than just me prioritizing, keeping my head in the fires here. But once the fires have kind of calmed down here at UVHQ, dude, I can't wait to get out there and get some boots on the ground. And just like you said, the therapy of just being in the woods and just, fighting Mother Nature and having her put you in your place, there's nothing better. And that is going to be something that I very much enjoy. So probably next year, fall of 2025.
Dude, I love it. Guys, I'm going to list a link in the show notes to Kolby's Instagram. Follow him personally. Also, obviously, Ultraview. Great getting to know you, Kolby. Love your transparency. That was the vibe I got. Was like, man, this dude is real, and he's humble, and he's hungry.
That's what we try to be.
That's what I love to hear, man. Parting words, advice.
Yeah, well, and I'll say this in parting words, to why you got early products is we don't send early products to just anybody that has eyeballs, right? Like, we try to find people in this industry that we can tell share our values as people and as a company. And, I could just tell that, you share a lot of values that we have. You're real, you're working your ass off, you're grinding your head down. You preach a lot of great lessons. I know you inspire thousands of people. And, that's just something that we jive with. And that's why, although we don't technically work together, like whether you use it or not, we just want to send something your way as a token of appreciation, because we appreciate guys out there like you grinding. Because if we're not out there grinding in this industry, man, the industry may disappear one day, and that can't happen. So, I appreciate what you're doing. Your content kind of inspires me. And thanks for having me on. If anyone's listening and hasn't heard about Ultraview yet, check out ultraviewarchery.com, throw that into Google, and we'll take care of you guys.
Dude, thanks for your time, guys. Separation's in the preparation. We'll catch you on the next one.